This is the Friday follow up, and ultimately, we're just going to cover all the lessons that we went over in the Wednesday workshop. And actually, this is going to be a double Friday follow up because I wasn't able to do a Friday follow up last week. I had a fight in Atlanta, so I had to do the whole weigh in thing on Friday. So here we go. We're going to do 2 weeks of this. So, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago in the Wednesday workshop, we had several people join, and I'm going to highlight what we went over for three of those folks. All right. The first was Flynn. With Flynn, we taught Flynn about the 80-20 rule and how to apply it to his enterprise project. So we discussed the art of the North Star and how the North Star should be your guiding light for any big goal in the enterprise and how to use that to ensure that your projects are going to be successful. So, what is a North Star? That's what we asked him. And at first he said, okay, well, we're just trying to get software implemented. You know, he works for a music studio and he was like, we need some new software that can manage our inventory, that can manage our purchase orders. And he said, so ultimately we're trying to get the software installed. I said, is that really what your North Star is? And he said, no, well, ultimately the North Star is the fact that we want to be able to have this software that's going to allow us to save time and not spend so much of our day trying to solve issues with the software and have more free time to do what we do best, which is, doing stuff with the music business. I said, okay, great. That's your North Star. So as you guys are looking for this particular software piece that you're going to implement into your environment, make sure that everything you're doing points back to that North Star. Is this software going to save us time? Is it going to stop us from having to do extra work, right? And if so, then we should move forward. So any activity that you do, because that software obviously is going to be customizable, it's going to have additional packages that you can enter and that you can add on. And if all of that they're doing, if any of it is not going to solve that North Star, then it's dead weight. They need to cut it. I also reminded him of the 80-20 rule. It's going to take 20% of your effort to get 80% of the results, and it'll take 80% of your effort to get the last 20%. So I gave him the example of, think about when you're writing an email. If it takes you 10 minutes, it really only took you 2 minutes to write that email. And then you spent 8 minutes kind of like editing it and reading it back to yourself and make sure that it looked good. The paragraphs were just right. Everything was good. You had a nice little salutation at the end. All right, that's the 80-20 rule, right? And so it was only going to take 20% of their efforts to get the first 80% of the results for the project. And oftentimes it's human nature to say, you know what, we got the 80%, it's good enough, let's go. Because it's going to take 80% of your effort to get that last 20%. Well, if you want to have a successful project, you got to do the whole thing. There is no 80%. It's either done or it's not. So don't fall off and make sure that the 80% that you're doing is focusing back on a North Star. Everything should be pointed to, is this going to save us time? Is this going to keep us from having to manage inventory, from managing purchase orders and doing all this stuff manually? Is it going to give us the time back? And if so, then you're successful. So you keep that in mind for any of your projects, you'll always be successful. So that's the first one. That's the first one that we taught. Now the second lesson on last week's Wednesday workshop is we worked with Priyanka. And Priyanka said, hey, I need help. I'm trying to get executive buy-in, and for whatever reason, I'm working at a cancer research location, and executives, they're not helping me work with the team members because the team members just aren't delivering. They're not doing their jobs fast enough, and I know that we can have some process improvements, we can have some more efficiencies, but I need executive buy-in. So, okay, I explained to her how to use data and create a visual on her way to convincing those executives to help her motivate those employees. I also taught her about the ad card model for change management. I'm not going to go into that right now. If you guys want to know more, you can go back to the YouTube channel and you can check out the full video there. But let's talk about the roadmaps, because I gave her two variations of the roadmap that's designed to have her gain support for both frontline workers and those executives. So the first thing I talked to her about was to visually show that information, and the first showed in kind of a swervy roadmap. Literally draw that roadmap out kind of like on a curvy roadmap. And then you have your points right along the processes, along that roadmap, and you can show, here's pain point 1, here's pain point 2, here's pain point 3. And then I told her, go ahead and blow up that section and talk about what the problem is and what the solution is, then go back to the swervy roadmap. Then blow up pain point 2, talk about what that pain point is, what the solution is, and then go back to the swervy roadmap. And then blow up that pain point 3, so on and so forth, right? After you do that, then show a roadmap in a straight line. Straight line with that solution implemented, and show how you can actually get your project done faster and more efficiently. And remember that when you're talking to executives, you need to focus on the bottom line. Is it more sales? Are we driving down cost? Are we making work easier for our employees? We don't want to focus on the process improvements. We want to focus on those three things because that's what executives care about. All right. So the third lesson that we had from last week's Wednesday workshop was with Sparrow. And Sparrow wanted some advice on how she can, go from being a consultant to then being an FTE or a full-time employee at an organization. And she said, a lot of companies are like, how do we know you're going to stick around? How do we know you're not going to skip out on some leave? And so our discussion ranged from dealing with how do we know you're not going to leave, to how do you actually interview your employer and do it in a manner that's going to make you more desirable. So one thing you need to remember is that you can actually interview your employers, right? While they're interviewing you, you need to let them know that, in a manner, like you don't explicitly say it, but you actually let them know, hey, I'm kind of interviewing you as much as you're interviewing me. Now, one of the easiest ways to do this when you're first getting started, if you're not that comfortable in interviews, do an informational interview, right? And so we talked about that. We're not going to dive into that again. You can watch the YouTube video if you want to know more. But the lesson here is that as a consultant, you can let folks know that you don't really want to travel anymore. You don't want to work long hours, right? You're constantly building something new. So you want to be able to see, hey, what can I do if I'm given some continuity, right? I want to see what I can accomplish in 5 to 10 years. And subliminally, when you state something like that, you're already letting them know you're going to be there for a while. Then you also want to ask, can I interview your people? Because I plan to be here for a while, and I want to ensure that the folks that you have here plan to stay here. Right? That's another little method of planting a seed and also letting them know that you're actually interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And a lot of people don't do that, so that's just another thing. They're like, oh my gosh, this person's sharp. Okay, I think we need to we need to give them a chance, because more often than not, if they're interviewing you, they already think that you can do the job. So the interview is really, will we like you? Will you fit? And so you want to be able to show them that you're a fit. You want to be able to, get over those hurdles of, will I be here for a long time because I've been a consultant, by sort of asking those questions and planting those seeds subliminally while you're interviewing. So those are the three lessons that we went over in last week's Wednesday workshop. And for this week's Wednesday workshop, right, we talked about three things, right? We had a couple folks that were on, and one of the folks that was on actually failed his Agile Certified Practitioner exam. And so one of the things that we talked about was, how do you shift your mindset when you do well on practice exams? He was testing well, 89%, 92%, 95%, and then he actually got below target on almost every area on the actual exam. So what I talked to him, and I said, look, some people just aren't good test takers, but actually, based on who he was, he should actually just go and take the next exam, right? Just go schedule it right away and take it again. No need to do any additional work. No need to do, obviously study a little bit more, stay sharp until you get to that day, but there's nothing else he needed to do. Sometimes you get the exam that's meant just for you. Sometimes you get the exam that was written in a manner that's going to make you fail. That's going to make you not understand the questions. That was, on that day, the questions that were electronically transmitted for you were the ones that got you to trip up. And so sometimes just go back and give it another shot. So that was the biggest thing. The second thing for him, because it was a PMI exam, was that he needs to understand that there's a PMI flavor of Agile. Now, for those of you that don't know, PMI is the Project Management Institute. They're heavily rooted in waterfall, right? And it's kind of like the brief background. Project management started by NASA. So yeah, we're doing rocket science, y'all. And they built it to do large software projects, and they took the very linear sequential design from the construction industry. And so because of that, you get this measure twice, cut once, a lot of documentation, a lot of follow-up. You got to have a lot of people that sign off on your documentation. If you make a change, there's a big effort to update all the documentation that follows. So when PMI is presenting their flavor of Agile, it is very different from what you see across the industry in terms of Scrum or Scrum.org or Scrum Alliance or even SAFE, SAFE. So when you're taking a PMI exam, you better go get their Agile practice book and their Agile guide, and you better understand their flavor of Agile, because you want their letters behind your last name, right? So that's the biggest thing. Don't just think that, oh, because I'm an Agile practitioner, I've been a Scrum Master before, I've been a product owner, oh, I got my PMP, now I can go walk in. PMP is the Project Management Professional, y'all, which is governed by PMI. But since I have that, I can just go walk in and take their Agile course. No, you can't. You better learn their flavor of Agile first, right? The second thing that we went into, or really the third thing, was the difference between an Agile coach and an Agile mentor, right? Now, I want you guys to understand this. The difference between a coach and a mentor is two different things. What a coach does is a coach upskills you, right? A coach is going to take your skill set and is going to level it up. right? It's going to figure out what you're good at, where your deficiencies are, and is going to develop certain tactics, certain routines, certain things that's going to help you get better. A mentor, on the other hand, they are going to lend their experience to you. They're going to say, oh, back in when I did this, this is what happened to me. This is what I learned from it. So this is probably what you can go ahead and do in order to accomplish the same goal. So that's the biggest difference between a mentor and a coach. A mentor is going to lend you their experience, where a coach is going to upskill you. Now, both are going to leave you in a better place than where you started, but just know that they're very two different attacks. One is a very directional approach, and one is a very non-directional approach, right? And the fourth thing that we talked about was, well, how do I deal with the cultural fit? I've got all of these certifications, and I have an MBA, and there's a big stigmatism about folks who have MBA, and what do I have to do to kind of fit the role? And I said, nah, man, you need to be yourself, because if you go in and you try to fit some mold, you try to fit the person who can be the fixer, or if you try to fit the person who is the expert, or if the subject matter expert, if you try to fit these different molds, then that's a lot of effort for you to keep that up during the thing. What you need to do is just be you, right? That's the biggest thing. Just be you and take it back to who you are. So I asked him, "Who are you?" And he said, "Oh, well, I'm the dude from the military that goes in when people can't get something right. They bring me in, and I'm the one that goes and I solve the problem." I was like, "Okay, that's who you are, right? You're a fixer. In fact, you're a fixer with a smile on your face, because he always had a smile and he always had positivity. So it's like that's who you really are. The MBA is just some education that you got. All the certifications, those are just tools in your tool belt." All right, so make sure that when you guys are going to interview for places, that you just present who you are. Don't try to be something that you're not, right? And let them know that who I am and what I bring to the table is what makes me unique, and that's why I'll be able to do the job. Again, remember, if you're interviewing, they already think you can do the job. They've already read your resume. Now they're trying to see, are you going to be a good fit? Will we like working with you? Will we enjoy you? Show them who you are. Show them who you are, and that they will enjoy you, and you have a better shot of getting that job rather than trying to come in and build up some persona. So that's it. That's it. That's the Friday follow up. That's what we did for the last 2 weeks. Next week with the Wednesday workshop, whatever it is that we got going on, and whatever it is that you guys ask me. Remember, I answer these questions live. We range from everything from operational issues. How do you deal with your team? How do you make them perform better? How do you deal with executives? How do you get their support? How do you plan out projects? How do I apply for a certification? Any question that you have, I'll answer it live. And then on this Friday follow up, I'll come back. I'll give a brief recap about what it is. So that way, in about 5 or 10 minutes, you can figure out everything that it is that we did for that hour or 90 minutes.